Hello, Scouts and parents. Today I'm going to talk to you about the BSA program called NOVA and also reveal many types of robots and how they work. To start with, I am Bob the Robot Guy, and I'm one of the counselors for the Robotics Merit Badge. NOVA is a STEM program through BSA. For those who might not be familiar with the acronym, it stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. NOVA can be done at home or at camp with the guidance of a counselor. With COVID-19 still isolating us at home, this is another activity for Scouts that they can work on after they earn their rank. Today, I will introduce NOVA with the use of several interesting robots to help your child get started. To communicate with a counselor, a Cub Scout can arrange a group call with their child or use email or Zoom, whatever works best for you. Ordinarily, the counselor would meet in person, but during self-isolation, this is the best we can do. NOVA is also available for Scouts above 5th grade, but it has a different group of requirements for Cub Scouts. There is a more advanced version of this program called Super NOVA for all age groups, but we will keep it simple by just using NOVA for today. NOVA also uses the skills learned in Cub Scout belt loops earned from 1st to 3rd grade, Weeblo's activities pins earned from 4th to 5th grade, or Scouting Merit Badges for the older Scouts 6th grade and above. There's a NOVA booklet for counselors for each age group, and there is a patch this patch looks like this right here. Each age group has around 6 requirements needed to earn this patch. I will show the website for NOVA at the end of this video. For this next part, we will now start requirement 1A, which is to watch a video on technology called Tech Talk. All right, kids, let's get started with technology section of the requirements. Do you like robots? There have been many robots created over the years. One of the most popular ones is R2-D2, which I'll be showing a little bit later in this video. So to start with, let's talk about what's inside of a robot. Bear with me since I might have to pause the camera to move around the room. Ask yourself, what is a robot? The definition in many dictionaries is a machine that can do a series of movements or motions, sometimes resembling a human. So let's discuss a washing machine. It is a programmed appliance that can do complex tasks, but many would not consider it a robot because it does not look human. On the other hand, C-3PO from Star Wars looks like a human, but is more of a costume than a robot. So now let's now think of a robot as something that can do a task without a human. What makes a robot move? How does it know if it moved? Let's take a look at some robots and then we'll look inside what makes them move. There are many types of robots. We need to distinguish between a radio-controlled toy and an autonomous machine, meaning it works without human control. This here is a radio-controlled robot which has like a little joystick controller that makes it move. This is a toy. A radio-controlled toy takes commands from a joystick, and the joystick sends radio waves to the toy. Therefore, what appears to be a robot does not exactly resemble a true robot. It doesn't make decisions. But before we explore, the first thing we need to do is we need to find out, how do you power a robot? A robot gets its power from a battery. And a battery comes in many shapes and sizes. So it powers everything from a cell phone to start your car, or in this case, a robot. Next, a robot needs something to make it move. Here are some motors. Okay, so the motors, we have This particular one is a DC motor, and this is a servo motor. If you connect a battery to the DC motor, the motor turns. Since I don't have a 12-volt battery handy, I'll demonstrate with a power supply. A power supply is like a battery charger. If you turn the battery around, it'll turn in the opposite direction. Now I'll turn the battery around. In this case, I'm not really using a battery, but I'm just demonstrating if you had a battery. If you turn, it turns the opposite direction right now. There are coils of wire inside the motor that make an electric field. That electric field pushes or pulls microscopic electrons to make motion. Think of the electrons as tiny droplets of water. If you turn on a garden hose, the droplets of water push through and have force. So the force of electrons can be like energy. Some motors have more wires inside, so it has a stronger electric field, and then it has more force. So I just showed you the motors, the two sizes. There are many types of motors as well as sizes. This motor has 2 wires on it, and the other motor I showed you had 3 leads. So it's a little more complicated to operate. So motors are like if you had a small child who tried to lift 100 pounds of weight, he or she could not do it, but a 200-pound man can lift 100 pounds over his head. Motors are the same way, since large motors are stronger. What else is inside a robot? There are probably many plastic or metal pieces that connect everything together to the frame, or to turn its wheels, or to move an arm, or to have the robot turn its head. There are wires or cables that connect all the parts together. Wires and cables and metal pieces conduct electricity. If you take a flashlight, there is a light bulb or an LED, a switch to turn it on, and a battery, and metal to connect everything. The power from the battery goes to the switch, to the metal conductors, and then when you turn on the switch, the light comes on. If there was a motor instead of a light bulb on the end of the flashlight, the motor would turn when you press the switch. How does a robot know what's going on? How does it know if the motor is turning? We use sensors to tell us that. We use sensors like this distance sensor, and it works by sending out a sound wave, and the echo comes back as it bounces off the wall or another object. So this side will transmit a sound wave, and this side will receive the sound wave as it bounces off the wall or the object. If there is a wall in front of the robot, the sensor sends out a signal, and the signal bounces off the wall, and the receiver senses that echo. So what if the robot doesn't want to run into the wall? A distance sensor can tell the robot that you're getting too close and stop right now. Here is another sensor. This is a touch sensor. It works by feeling when you physically get too close to another object. When you get it too close, the switch closes and the signal goes back to the robot to stop. Another sensor is a color sensor. This sensor can see green, blue, or red, for example. If there is a red soda can nearby, the robot can detect that it is red. Some robots use cameras that can sense shapes and colors and help the robots see as well. But wait, we are leaving out an important bit of information. How does the autonomous robot know when we're too close or when to turn the motor? The answer to this is the robot has brains. It is not like the human brain. It is more of an electronic circuit. Inside of this computer is data. which tells the robot what to do. Signals from the sensor, in this case, this particular robot has a sensor here on the front, and the sensor sends data to the controller down here, and it uses the batteries as power, and then it the computer tells the motors to turn, which are the wheels in this case. Okay, the next question you might ask, how does the computer chip know what to do? Inside the chip is a memory section that stores information called data. Data is like a light switch on a flashlight. If you turn on the light switch, the light comes on. Let's call that a 1. Now let's turn off the light, and that is a data called 0. So for a robot computer chip to know what the data is, it either comes as 1s or as a 0. This is called digital. On, off, on, off, on, off. So a robot knows that a sequence of 1s and 0s means to turn on the motor or to detect the sensor. Let's practice this, but this time you're the robot. Your motor is your arm and your sensors are your eyes. Move your arm to the right 12 inches and stop. Your arm has moved while your eyes detected how far you moved. If you want more accuracy like a robot, use a ruler and move your arm 1 foot. Using your eyes as a sensor, you can now go exactly the distance you want to. The robot needs a program to make it go. But your brain is telling your arm how far to move. So what you have in this case, your arm is your motor, your eyes are your sensor, your heart is your battery, and your brains are the computer controller of 1s and 0s. Here are some examples of robots I'm going to show. Some are homemade and some are bought online. This one was a kit that you have to put together. It takes around 1 day to build and 1 day to program if you have previous experience. Here are the batteries, and the robot has 3 motors. And this motor, which we're not going to use for the moment. And it has 2 sensors. It has the distance sensor, which we're not going to use. We're just going to use the touch sensors that you push. This is to help it to prevent running into the wall. The objective of this robot is to go forward, and then when the sensor touches the wall, turn the wheel motors backwards and then proceed to go forward again. This robot will do this all day until the batteries die. The brains and the program are on this circuit board. So to clarify for this particular robot, the brains or microcontroller has a program to do only one thing, to roll forward while watching the touch sensors when they bump, then when it bumps, to back up and start over again. That's all. Robot computers understand the 1s and datas and is going to follow only those digital directions, nothing else. If you make a mistake with the 1s and 0s, the robot will not work right. This is a line-following robot. It has sensors on the bottom that detect where the edge of the line is. So this one, to demonstrate it, we have to turn on the power. Whoops. It checks to see where the edge of the line is. And off it goes. It'll follow the black line indefinitely as long as there is power and the batteries are strong enough to make it move. This is a walking robot made out of Lego. This one has an inner and an outer leg, which make it so it can turn when it turns the motor down here, it'll turn the direction of the robot. So now we'll demonstrate it. The robot is able to turn by turning this motor. It will turn its direction of movement, as you can see. So the inner leg is the way to turn, and the outer leg is just for support. This robot has sensors on it that transmit a light beam out to the object, and then when it bounces off the object, it comes back into the sensor right here. This robot was made in the 1980s, so it doesn't work right now because it has dead batteries. But here are some things, handy things if you were ever to make your own robot. Right here, this is windshield wipers, this part right here. And these are sensors right here that transmit light. And right here, this is an aluminum piece of arm that was just made in the garage. And these are PVC right here. These two are like PVC pipe right here. The robot has an input port right here, which in the old days was called a DB25. And it doesn't have any optics on top that work. It was more to make it look like a robot. This robot is the next generation of the one you just saw. This robot has many more motors than the other one. We'll go into what the motors are, and I'll explain a few of these things. So this part here, this is the hand, and it has a rotating wrist on it. So when you turn on this motor, it'll rotate the wrist left and right. It also has a wrist part that moves up and down. This is the optical sensor for distance. It has an elbow back here that moves sideways, and it has an elbow that moves up and down, which I'll demonstrate in a little bit. Okay. On this side, it has the other arm, which is the right arm. It has a motor in the back, and that is for closing the fingers right here. It has a sensor right here, which is used for distance. And it has a little IC circuit right here, integrated circuit, and that's used for checking the elevation, how high the arm is going up and down. Right here is a passive infrared sensor, which is used to detect body heat. And then, of course, at the top is the head, which is, you can see this part here is homemade. This is a sieve for straining vegetables that I used. And it's basically a home-built robot. Now we will demonstrate how it has a voice synthesizer on there for talking. I'll demonstrate how do we make the voice works. So we first turn it on and we select number 1, which is the selection for voice, and we'll have it talk.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So what it's doing, well, it's counting in what they call a loop. Loop means when it gets from 10 down to 1, and then when it starts over again, it'll start over at 10 and count 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then begin the loop again. It'll do this indefinitely as long as the batteries are lasting. Now we will demonstrate the robot going to an object and detecting the color, which I'll explain in a second. We turn on the power, The arms calibrate themselves to get to the right height of the bottle. And then it's going to say orange. It sees the orange bottle cap at the top right here. And it's going to try to steer towards the bottle.
Orange. Orange. Orange.
Now it's going to close the fingers. And it's going to set down the bottle. Motors take a while, that's why it's so slow. Now we will let you be the robot. Make a circle with your hand and pretend it's a telescope and put it over the front of your eye. Cover your other eye. Now find a switch in the room and walk towards it. This is how the robot knows where to go. The camera looks towards the object it's trying to find. In this case, it was an orange bottle lid, and it goes towards it with the use of the program inside the robot. Now, how did the robot talk? Here is a voice chip. It uses ones and zeros that we talked about previously to pronounce words. The robot uses certain digital numbers of ones and zeros to tell the voice chip to talk. Here's an example of how to make ones and zeros mean something to the robot. So, if you were to take 0 equals 0000, this stands for flashlight 1 is on and flashlight 0 is off. That would be off and on. Now that equals 1 when you have a 1 here on this side. Now if you want to have a 2, you move the 2 to the next column and you have this one as 0, so now that's a 2. Here's a 3. 1 and 2 equals 3. Here's a 4. 4 is the next position. It's like carrying 1. When you go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, after 9 we go to 10. Well, this is the same principle, that you're going to the next column and it's like carrying the 1 to the next column. Here's how you make 5 to the robot, how you make 6 to the robot, 7, and finally 8. And this can go on indefinitely. So, now, if you were to take the number, if you wanted to make a P for pop, the word P-O-P, you would take a 25 and then put in a 24 and then put another 25 in there, and you would spell to the robot, you would spell the word pop. And we used that other diagram I just showed you. So pop is spelled with a 25, a 24, and a 25. So we put in these numbers, we put in this number here, 24 and 25. You'd put in a 0, 0, 1, 0 for the 2, and for the 5 you'd put in a 0, 1, 0, 1 into the robot, and then you would put in a 0, 0, 1, 0 for the first 2 of the 24, and then a 0, 1, 0, 0 to give you 24, and then back you would go to get pop, P-O-P, you'd go back and use 0, 0, 1, 0 and 0, 1, 0, 1 to give you the last P. I hope that makes sense. Now we're getting to the robot you've been waiting for. This is a store-bought robot. It has voice recognition. That means it understands a spoken human command. The only problem is sometimes it makes mistakes in understanding. If I pronounce wrong, it might get confused. Let's see if we can make it do something. I might have to pause the camera a second in case it makes a mistake understanding me. Hey R2, game mode. Hey R2, hey R2, game mode, dance program. So as you can see, each of these robots does something different than the others. Some have larger memories, or smaller motors, or larger sensors and smaller batteries. It all depends on what we need the robot to do. Now, by having watched this video, you have completed part of the technology talk requirement number 1 for the Nova STEM requirements. The next step is to watch another half-hour video on something similar about robots and then to discuss this with your counselor. Your counselor can be a teacher, a science person, or a relative who understands science and can coach you through completing this badge. A Nova Counselor guidebook can be found at the BSA Scout store. The counselor needs to be youth protection trained and needs to fill out an adult application for BSA. If you want to watch another half-hour video of robots online, you will be ready to finish requirement 1A. A good robot website with high-tech robots can be found at Boston Dynamics website. It is spelled https://www.youtube.com/user USER/BOSTONDYNAMICS. At the Boston Dynamics website, you will find some amazing robots there to give you another half hour of technology. At this point, write down 2 questions or ideas to talk to your counselor about. The website for Nova, by the way, is https://www.scouting.org/STEM-Nova-awards. So if you go to that website, you'll find out all the information for all the different ranks in scouting. By the way, if you do buy a robot kit, keep in mind that the cheaper ones online often have errors in the assembly instructions. I used this one for the merit badge many times before, and we used it for 7th graders. But the trouble is they had a little bit of trouble making it they had trouble putting it together, but it only cost $40. So also many of the cheap ones can only do one thing. I hope you learned about Nova. We need more people with technical skills in our world to solve things like COVID-19, outer space missions, and computer security. Thank you for watching this video. And finally, may the 4th be with you. Have a nice day.